And just so everybody knows, I am waiting for 3 more members to join, so hopefully they'll do so soon before we can actually do an official start.
Hi, Janelle.
Hello, hello. Still waiting a few minutes for my stragglers. I need 2 more. Well, said they were coming, so. Again, my apologies, you guys are waiting on a couple of people.
Janelle, Melissa's about to hop on.
Okay, great. I think we can go ahead and start. Lorraine, if you want to start.
Okay, so this will be the call to order and roll call. And good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday, March 8th, 2022. And I'm calling this meeting of the Nevada Hazard Mitigation Working Group to order at 1:06 p.m. Janelle, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Stephen A. Croft, Solomay Barton,
Here.
Faith Beekman,
Here.
Kathy Canfield,
Here.
Ryan Shane, Greg DiPolo,
Here.
Cheryl Gonzalez, Claire Ketchum, Andrew Treelise. I think he's having some trouble logging in. Lorraine Walser,
Present.
Aaron Warnock, Melissa Whipple,
Here.
and Janelle Woodward. I'm here too. And we do have a quorum.
Okay, as we do have a quorum, I will close item 1 and we'll move on to the next item. Item 2 is public comment, and this is for discussion only. No action may be taken upon a matter raised under this item of the agenda until the matter itself has been specifically included on an agenda as an item upon which action may be taken. Public comments may be limited to 3 minutes per person at the discretion of the chair. Comments will not be restricted based on viewpoint. To provide testimony during this period of public comment via telephone, please call in anytime after 12:30 today by dialing 669-19-2599. When prompted to provide the meeting ID, please enter 686-738-8625 and press the pound sign. When prompted for a participant ID, please press the pound sign again. When asked to provide public comment, please press *6 to unmute your phone and *6 again when your comments are complete. Please be advised that the YouTube stream will be between 60 and 90 seconds behind the live meeting. If you would like to present public comment, please go ahead and call in using the above number to hearing the meeting live. I'm now opening the meeting for any public comment. Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and close agenda item 2 and move to agenda item 3. Item 3 is the approval of minutes, and this is for discussion and possible action. The working group will discuss and review the minutes of the December 14th, 2021 working group meeting. The working group will then decide whether to approve the minutes of the December 14th, 2021 meeting. So is there any discussion on the matter? Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion to approve?
Salome Barton, motion to approve the minutes from December 2021 meeting.
Okay, and then thank you. And can we have a second, please?
Craig DiPolo, second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve was made by Salome Barton and seconded by Craig DiPolo. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed, please say nay. Okay, so with that, the motion carries. And agenda item 3 is now closed, and we will move on to item 4. Item 4 is the state hazard mitigation plan update. This is for discussion and possible action. And this is Janelle Woodward, Mitigation Officer, Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. Ms. Woodward will provide a status update to the state hazard mitigation plan. The working group will discuss the process and update of the plan. Included in this discussion will be the review of 3 of the updated hazard sections from section 3 of the state plan. The working group may vote to finalize these hazard updates for the state plan. The hazards include severe storms and extreme snowfall, extreme heat, and drought. So if you would, please go ahead, Ms. Woodward.
Okay, thank you. And let me just share my screen quick. Where did I find it? Okay, can everybody see my screen right now? Actually, I guess
Not yet.
you can see it. Oh,
No.
sorry. I have to hit share again. How about now?
Yes.
Yep, we have it.
Okay, great. So I sent out all of this stuff and wanted you guys to kind of take a look at it. These are 3 of the updates from our subject matter experts that came back. And this is from the hazard section in section 3 of the state plan. So we want to just take a look at what updates were made by our subject matter experts and talk about them. If you have any questions, I don't have anybody here with this meeting today, but we can certainly get them for the next one and take any questions to them. So just let me know. The first one up is the severe storms and extreme snowfall, which it looks like Chris Malcolm, I'm not sure if he changed the name of that or if it was just that he was noting that he updated this section. If you, most of you probably don't recall, Craig and Andrew, you probably would, that we kind of combined a lot of the weather into one section. And so they, you know, that's what's updated right here. So if you have any discussion, comments, whatever, feel free to just unmute yourself. Please identify yourself for the record if you speak, but feel free to comment on the update from the weather. He did, add a sentence here. A significant portion of the winter snowpack is generated by these Pacific atmospheric river winter storms, and made a couple changes noting on the images that are on there, added some other things, and then updated also down below. But is there any discussion? Anybody feel free to speak up on this weather section. And hopefully you guys have had at least an opportunity to glance at it. I'm just kind of scrolling through here so you can kind of see what he did. There is a requirement for climate change. And so just so everybody understands that climate change is a part of all the hazards. It's not a hazard in and of itself. So FEMA requires commentary on, this is longer than I thought it was. Here we go. Impacts from climate change. So he went ahead and added those 3 paragraphs to that section there. Originally, when this first started, they'd say like 2 or 3 sentences is good, but we want to have as much as we can talking about individual hazards and how climate change affects those specific hazards.
Hey, Janelle, this is Jeremy Hines. I know I'm not on this committee. Am I able to ask a question or not?
I believe that's up to our chair, but I don't have a problem with that. I'm happy for anybody to.
Go ahead, please.
All right, so I don't have a copy of the draft in front of me, just whatever's on your screen here, Janelle. But in the NRAC meeting about 1.5 years ago, we approved a Nevada threats and hazards list. And I don't see that storm, if you scroll up a little bit, what that last one was. The vernacular on that is not the same as what was in the approved list. It's the severe storms and extreme snowfall. We have extreme heat, thunderstorms, lightning, tornado, and winter storms and extreme cold. So I just want to make sure we're still staying consistent if we're asking every jurisdiction to utilize this same vernacular throughout all of our plans throughout the state. As well as we may need to relook at the Nevada threats and hazards in the NRAC to include a couple things such as climate change, since it's not currently in this list. But I do want to make sure that we're all speaking the same language and using the same document. And just an addition to that is, I don't see the whole document, but in my eyes, so if nobody knows, I'm from the city of Henderson. I'm going to be utilizing this state hazard mitigation document to help write our county document. And if we have hazards that are not listed in the state plan, but we list them in the county plan, it looks like we're not really talking. Because if there is a hazard in the county, it most certainly is also a hazard in the state. So if we don't do that, we're going to look like we're not coordinated. So just throwing that out there. Again, I apologize, I'm not part of this group, but I just wanted to put that out there before the agenda item was approved.
That's fine, Jeremy. Let me just ask you, because I don't have that right in front of me either. On that list, it sounded to me like you're listing out all of the different weather related separately. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's something that we may need to relook at also. The way that the list is broken up is that it has categories and then subcategories underneath it. So the category is severe weather. The subcategories are extreme heat, thunderstorms and lightning, tornado, and winter storms and extreme cold. And so those are all those sub bullets under severe weather. But again, we may need to relook at the whole document to update it, to make it a little more user-friendly for jurisdictions and for the state to pull from, to be a little more clear on what exactly we're going to be putting as a hazard, whether it be the topic or the subtopics we're putting as a hazard. But again, that's a conversation that we need to have with you guys and then push it through the NRAC to get approved.
Okay, John, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. So yeah, I was actually pulling this up in email and I'm sending it to Lorraine and Janelle right now that you can share this with the group. We created this about 2 years ago because of this specific issue Jeremy addressed, where we had multiple people saying similar but different verbiage, vernacular, based upon where they lived in the state or what their city, county, or even the state. And then we went as far as FEMA calling it something else. So Janelle, you know, you've been involved in these discussions. What I would suggest is from the DEM side, we take this document and have your panel here review it and give input on it. And then we also send it, if Chris Smokem's not on here because he was the one who gave us the verbiage for the weather events that we had listed in our efforts. And again, this was a preparedness document to help us get through the THIRA process. And what we were remiss to do was get enough of the mitigation effort involved in here. So I would suggest Janelle and Lorraine, you guys take this document, you review it, give us some input, have this committee approve what you feel are appropriate based upon mitigation standards, threats and hazards. And I know this group is focused on natural, but we also need to include our man-made and technological as a full DEM document. And so, and then from there, with your group's approval, we could take it to NRAC and say, here's the most recent hazard list approved by the Nevada Hazard Mitigation Working Group. And it's now on the table for them to review and approve and see if we can't get this growing in a better way than just a preparedness effort. And we don't have your group's buy-in as all of the SMEs on this across the state.
Thanks, John. I think that's a great idea. Just as maybe a point of clarification, I believe that the title of this section was combined a couple, maybe 1 or 2 times ago when we updated the state plan. And so that's where it got renamed from, I think, being separate in many of the things. So some of the things that were done in the past, you know, are what we're reflecting now versus this list. Now, we did go over the list a little bit at our last quarterly meeting, if you guys remember, but we can certainly send this out to everybody on the committee and then get some feedback and discuss it at the next meeting.
Lorraine, it's John Backendall again. I sent this to you guys and I've got Janelle's screen up. And honestly, I don't know how the hell to share my screen. So if one of you guys can pull it up and you could give them an example of what it actually looks like, because Janelle referred to it as categories and subcategories so they can see what she was referring to. And this did go through Southern Nevada. It went through rural Nevada. We had law enforcement, we had fire, and then we had tribal input before it went to NRAC. And then NRAC gave us a couple additional hazards that they wanted in here, the air quality component. So take a look at it. If you guys don't mind, Janelle or Lorraine, whoever's doing this, slowly scroll down through there and just let them see what it is so they know what you guys are talking about. That way, I think they have a better reference of the material.
Do you see it up on the screen right now? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So here's, I guess, their table of contents. So they are listing out the different things, but what he was talking about, actually, let me just look here once. Severe weather.
I was going to say, you're making me dizzy. Slow down.
I know. I had to figure it out. Sorry, you guys. Bear with me, please. So this is a severe weather from that list that we took a look at last time. And then where Jeremy was talking about how it has extreme heat, microburst, straight line winds, thunderstorms and lightning, tornado, winter storms, and extreme cold. I think that what Jeremy is saying is that we want our plans throughout the state to refer to like things the same. So if we take and make this severe weather section, but then address these different items underneath that severe weather, we could, it's going to be a little bit more in line with what everybody's doing in all of the different counties throughout the state, mirroring what the state plan has in it. Jeremy, were you thinking that you wanted these as separate? Would you be okay with severe weather if these things were listed under severe weather heading? Or are you guys saying you want you want each one of these to be a separate hazard?
That's a great question. And that is one of the things that I was actually going to bring up at the NRAC about this. What we want to list is the actual hazard, whether it be severe weather is the actual hazard, or do we want to just use the header as just a category and then the actual hazard is underneath? Like I said, we're going to probably have to go back and relook at this because there are some headers that are singular that we would have to use as a hazard. And then there's some headers that we wouldn't use as a hazard. It gets a little confusing if the user is taking this document and trying to identify which hazards they want to put in the plan. And we don't really have a good direction to point them to as to which heading or subcategory is what we're actually using as the identified hazard. So again, this is something that I can talk to John about, and then we can bring up or modify the actual document. But it certainly is something that we have. It was something quick, as John referred to. It was something we needed to get something on paper. It most definitely needs to be relooked at and retooled, and maybe we can make it a little bit better and user friendly.
Can you hear me? This is Craig DiPolo.
Yeah, Craig.
I'm not seeing you. I'm looking at the mitigation plans. That's why I asked. These other hazards are broken out in other sections. As at least in the 2018 plan, section 3.3.15 is severe storm and extreme snowfall. The next section 3.16 is tornado. And then earlier, 3.10 is hail and thunderstorms. 3.6 is extreme heat. So some of these are already broken out. 3.2 is drought. Just pointing it out that they're not, some of the things Jeremy has mentioned are not under severe storm and extreme snowfall in the 2018 plan. They have their own sections. We need to make sure everything, I think it'd be best to have everything in here like Jeremy's saying, but it's best to be more inclusive than not. We might look at these because I think some are already broken out. Unless we're combining more than I know, just mentioning that.
I think that, and John, just one second. I think that Chris just did this, the winter storms and extreme cold, or whatever the title was. This was it, severe storms and extreme snowfall, but did not give me like tornado and some of these other ones. So I think that as a committee, we need to determine as well which things that we want to make sure are included. As far as the sections, and they go into a much greater detail when talking about tornado, when talking about the severe storms and that type of thing. And I was going to ask you guys, Craig and Andrew, both to weigh in, but I want to see what John wanted to say.
Thank you, John Backetall again. So all three of you were speaking on exactly where this document was going. The point was to be inclusive, but not inclusive, to where you could use each one as an individual hazard. But we also needed to define them in categories for a table of contents, so somebody could go to it quickly and understand that a tornado is usually under weather. And so that was the point, to having a category and then multiple sublines underneath there. And then Dr. DiPaolo, your comment of inside of the state hazard mitigation plan, it is in there in different areas. A big focus of this was the fact that we would have, I'm going to throw Jeremy under the bus, Henderson would call straight line winds. We would have another county jurisdiction, let's just say Clark County, their plan would say severe winds. And then the state plan would say microburst. When we were all talking about a similar hazard, we were defining it under three different terms with three minor different definitions. And that was the biggest conflict when you're trying to determine what the hell is Clark talking about compared to what Washoe's talking about, to who knows what the hell Elko's talking about. We had all of these different terms for a very similar type storm or hazard. So my suggestion to you all would be to keep it what you're doing, look at the overall view of this and see what we can add as a more comprehensive document, and just make sure we're including everything. Because I heard Dr. DiPaolo say hail. We included that under thunderstorms and lightning, because that's usually where hail comes from, is thunderstorms. So, and it's referenced down into include high winds over 50 miles an hour, create hail, blah, blah, blah. So if you feel there's something that should be in here, because there are events in Nevada that may not include thunder and lightning, but you get this effect out of it, and it's a hazard you have, then we want to include it. We weren't trying to disclude or give out phony Russia misinformation here. We were trying to encapsulate as much as we could, but yet keep it simple by category and by terminology. And then hopefully, eventually, as Janelle pointed out to me, as every jurisdiction updates their plan at a different time throughout a 5-year period, they incorporate this terminology into their plans. So now we're all speaking the same walk. That was the whole point.
Thanks, John. So certainly this is something we can come back to in the next meeting. I'll send you out, everybody on the committee, this list of threats and hazards. And then we can go over the list of what's in there currently versus what, maybe needs to be changed. And I'm sure we can, Chris was the first person to send this back to me, but did not send any of the others. So perhaps he might not have gotten everything, or this was just the first one that he sent back and didn't send the other ones. But we can decide then, as a group, what we think best to be included in the state plan, because Jeremy, you're right, exactly. The counties draw down to their plan from the state plan, as well as we take from their plan to feed the state plan. So that's how that all works, because as Jeremy indicated earlier, the overall state plan talks about everybody in the state. So wherever there's a hazard, it should be in the state plan. There shouldn't be something mentioned in Henderson's plan, or Henderson or Clark County, since they're all in the same plan, but it should be, if it's there, it should also be in the state plan. And if it's the state plan and we're saying that something happens in Henderson or Clark County, they should be listing that as well, so that we're not giving conflicting information, or like he said, calling it winter storms and extreme cold, or winter severe storms and heavy snowfall, or whatever it is. So we certainly will take a better look at this section as we go into the next one, and bring that back and I'll reach out to Chris about those other weather-related sections. And we as a committee then need to give our input to, and I realize that most of the committee is not used to this, but you know, we have to just start talking and giving our input. And then it, you know, that's how we grow and learn, you know, how all of the mitigation stuff works, how the planning works, and, you know, getting involved in that discussion. So I'm going to, at this point, if you all are okay with this, I'm going to move down and I'm going to go back to the agenda for items I have. And I'm going to go past the, we'll leave the weather part on the table right now, because there certainly is language that needs to be changed. And I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through this fast. If they're all on the same document. So let's see here. And then remember that climate change is a part of the hazards. It's not a hazard all by itself. So if we wouldn't do a mitigation project for climate change, we would be doing a mitigation project for any of these different types of hazards. And climate change is a part of that. The next one was extreme heat. Now this was not done by Chris. This part was done by Steph, who is our state climatologist. And she went through and did this. She did not do, or at least she didn't send me a copy with the marked changes, but she did update the extreme heat. And this is especially important to the south and the Clark County area and those Nye County, all of those areas in the south where they get the exceptionally high heat. We certainly, I think 100 degrees is extreme heat, but it doesn't match the 120 degrees plus that you guys get down in the south, which is why I could never live there, only in the winter. But I don't know if you guys have taken a look at the extreme heat. She did update the information, weather fatalities for 2020. So that's updated information, talking about the history. One thing she did not include that I noted was the climate change portion. But as you'll notice, each section goes in a certain order, and they'll talk about location, severity, and probability of future events. I guess she did talk about climate change here. Maybe it's in the drought section that doesn't have the climate change. One thing she added, though, was mitigation actions in this section, and we don't typically put them here, but I personally don't have a problem. We can take these things and add them back in the other sections that talk about mitigation actions, but I thought that this was really good to expand this. The next section that we'll look at is drought. She also did the same section as the state climatologist.
We were asking everyone to do the mitigation actions, so she just tossed them in there.
Yeah. So, John, are you still asking a question, or you just didn't put your hand down? Looks like you stepped away. Oh.
I just wanted to leave my hand up for a while, sorry.
Okay. Exercising.
Makes the fingers skinnier when you hold them up in the air.
Okay, and Jeremy, go ahead.
Apologies again. I saw up a little bit, they were still using the census 2010 census. Are they going to update that to the current census numbers? This one right here, we went down average 1981 to 22.
This right here. You know, we should. Do we have the information I don't know if I would think that information is there. I'm gonna highlight this.
This is John. It should be out there. They just changed a number of the legislature seats in the federal delegation based upon the census. So it should be accurate. It should be available.
Okay. This too. So we can go back and ask her about that, or I can go back and ask her about that. And we don't have to do that. And certainly we want the most updated information in there instead of older 2010 when it's 2022 and the plan is due in 23. We don't want that. We would like more up-to-date information if we have it.
I have one more question, Janelle, if
Sure.
this is really directed toward Dr. DiPolo. Our analysis for, oh God, what's it called?
Give us a hint.
It's the analysis of cost on earthquake damage and
Has this?
thank you. Or has this, is that going to be redone now that the new data for the census is out?
Are you talking about, you're asking if we're rerunning the HAZIS?
Are you going to redo HAZIS based on the new numbers from the census?
Yes, we will update HAZIS for the planner. You're talking state plan, and then do you guys grab that off of ours, or?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we've shifted that over. We had some pretty severe change in personnel, so we're not handling that right now. Janelle's shop is.
And we do have a GIS person who plans to do that.
Copy. Do you guys have a time frame on that HAZIS update?
We do not exactly have a time frame on that. We've had a lot of change. This is not an excuse, it's just an explanation. We've had a lot of changes going on more recently and being very busy. We just haven't addressed HAZIS yet, but we will be doing that probably, I'm gonna say like within the next 6 months, maybe. Is that helpful to you, Jeremy, or?
Yeah, I think we're just trying to position ourselves to where we are in a place where we have as much information as we can when we start building our new hazard mitigation plan this year.
Okay. So I know that I have those things marked for actually. With updated census, right? Any other comments on this? Anybody can feel free to speak up. Everybody's comments and that make a huge difference in the work that we do. So there is some updated information added here. See, in southern Nevada, there may be an additional month or more when daytime maximum temperatures exceed 95 degrees. That's probably normal to you guys down there. But it's hot up here. And then, of course, the mitigation actions that we had been, you're right, Craig, we had been asking everybody to do that. So that we could expand out our hazards. We only listed in the state plan 3 areas that were high hazard category areas, and then put mitigation actions. But what happens when we don't expand it out to further ones is that we're unable to apply for mitigation project grants for things that we don't list any mitigation actions for. So for instance, Drought, and Bunny Bishop and myself are working on doing an amendment to our state plan for Drought so that some additional projects could be submitted. And so that's where we're wanting to expand these out. I know that one of the comments also was expanding or including in the plan update the pandemic or epidemic area, and those are a little bit harder things to come up with that can be eligible under the current guidelines. So we're hoping that some of this stuff will change and allow further projects for mitigation funding. Any other comments on these? Kathy, go ahead.
Yeah, I did. I was just wondering on some of these, when they have the potential to address several topics, and I'm just kind of looking at this, providing subsidies or other programs to help people offset the cost of home cooling and or weatherization, which I think is really an important feature. But I was also thinking about all the wildland fires that we've had and all the smoke issues and air quality issues, and how it's not just because of the heat, but it's just because you can't be outside. So to identify some of these that maybe have cross purposes, or making sure that they're listed in several, so maybe they rise a little bit higher, or you can cover more, you can address more topics with a mitigation, or how those are done.
Sure, definitely. And that's something we've talked about in the drought section as we've met with EPA and that, and with some help that they're giving us. And that's that multi category benefit. So thanks for bringing that up. Craig.
Yeah, just to mention, it's important for Jeremy and others here to look at these, Kathy, to look at this list. And if there's something you guys have talked about doing and it's not on this list, we need to add the bullet at least. And so as you go through these and you think about your own community, Henderson, and some of the realities that have happened and some of the ideas that you guys have for how to mitigate things in the future, maybe it hasn't been done before or something. We'd love to have the bullet, or we need to have the bullet in there if you want the opportunity someday to maybe address that. So just making that comment that these aren't etched in stone. And again, we want to be inclusive. If you see something, it's really important to perhaps send Janelle an email or something saying, add this to this section.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to end up doing is that this is our first look at these. And so past this meeting, maybe we don't, there was a potential to vote on finalizing these, but we certainly don't have to do that right this minute. So if you have things that you want to, that you think about that should be added, like Craig said, then certainly reach out and send that information to me, and we will update these and add the information, because there's no way that our state climatologist is necessarily going to know all the ideas that people, come up with. These are things she included, which were great. So we want to include some of the other things that people have. So let's see what else. She did then give all of her references as well here. And then the next section, if there are no more, are there any more comments on that section?
Pretty minor, but some of those figures can be enlarged.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that as we're putting things together. Sure. Thank you. All right. And the last one is drought. And it looks like she did use water year 2021. And the drought monitor was that she showed was November 16th of 2021. Certainly the history, the location, severity, and probability, which is pretty much our whole state. Impacts to rural and urban Nevada. And then, let's see here, mitigation actions that she listed for that. And these are pretty general, and that's kind of what we want to be when we do our mitigation actions anyways. You don't want to be so specific that you can only do a project in a certain place and only do that project. You want to be a little bit more vague on those, and then it covers everything. Jeremy.
So I saw in the drought, the first part of that section, they talked about the water stored in Tahoe.
Uh-huh.
We're going to be vague. Do we want to put that in there, or do we also want to include its issues in it itself?
Well, when I say being vague, I don't mean in the narrative of this. I mean in our list of mitigation actions.
Okay, so I guess my question is, why do we have Lake Tahoe in there, not any mention of Lake Mead?
I don't know. It might be, excuse me, it might be that she was thinking north since she's located at UNR, but let me see. All right, so we'll ask her about that. Let's see here. So I think it looks like she had used that as the example because of she's discussing snowpack right here. Yeah.
And not arguing that that should be in here. I just wanted to make sure that it was being inclusive of the whole state, not just the
Sure.
part of the state.
But we'll ask her about Lake Mead and that information from the south. That certainly makes sense. Go ahead.
No, it'd be a good parallel. And
Yeah.
certainly an important aspect with regard to climate change. So good catch.
That's why we like to open this up for anybody who has something to say, or at least that's been kind of the history of mitigation committees in getting input from other people, not just the committee members. But she gives the history, location, severity, and I believe she is the head of the drought committee that's discussing that right now. She did say the impacts to rural and urban, but when we look down here, she comes to mitigation actions, but does not enter anything about climate change on the effect of climate change on drought. So that's something that would need to be added to this section. Any other comments on this? Jeremy, you still holding your hand up or you have more? I'm okay with anybody just, unmute yourself and give your comments. I'm fine with that.
It's one of the fastest putting down your hands I've ever seen.
Yeah, so those were the three I wanted to bring to you this time, just for us to get that initial walkthrough. At the next one, I will ask in June when we meet, I'll ask for these people to attend the meeting, and then we can discuss some of those. Plus, I will communicate with them before the next meeting about comments that have come up this time. So we'll send it back for some more edit, and then it'll come back to us again. And I think that that's pretty much, let me see. Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, and then references. So that is where we sit with those. Madam Chair, that's this section then, if there are no further comments.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. If there's no further discussion, I will go ahead and close agenda items 4 and move on to item 5.
Actually, one last comment, I guess. We probably should, when I was reading those different hazards and the numbers in section 3 there, they were kind of out of order. So we may want to revisit that. And I'm trying to remember, I think that was a FEMA order initially that we started with and have just promulgated. But, it might make a certain amount of sense to have any weather related things together. And also, I think John's comment early on was an important one, that we may be able to have some quick reference things that, for example, what was shown here, that the weather and all the different aspects under it could put some quick reference things up front so that it doesn't take people a long time to find something they can understand pretty quickly. Okay, that's going to be in the severe weather section or something like that. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing further, I'll close agenda item 4 and we'll move on to item 5. Item 5 is the mitigation grants update. This is for discussion only. And we have Janelle Woodward, Mitigation Officer from the Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. Ms. Woodward will provide an update on mitigation grant opportunities and available funding, including Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, the HMGP, from COVID, and the HMGP post-fire grant programs. If you would please go ahead, Ms. Woodward.
Okay, I promise it's not always going to be me talking. I promise. As we get going further, it'll be other people talking, but I just wanted to give a quick update on the mitigation grant status. So for the BRIC program, we submitted, let's see here, 4 total applications. One was a repeat of what we submitted last year from State Public Works on the Hobart Dam area for the water system up there. That was a repeat submission. It was submitted last year, but did not make the cut to move forward for potential funding. So we did, that's part of the competitive grant. So it was a approximately $10 million grant application. So that was resubmitted for BRIC 2021, 2021. And then we submitted 3 other planning type applications that hit that $500,000 planning cap that we had on our set aside. The set aside was $1 million, but I had a couple of different agencies that were going to submit and then did not end up submitting in the end. So we did leave $500,000 on the table, which was too bad, but part of that was all of the issues with BRIC, and those are numerous. They include the building codes issues that we do not adopt our state. We do not adopt building codes in Nevada at a statewide level. We do that at a local level. That's what our law is. And right now, FEMA is wanting everybody to do that at a statewide level. So they're kind of, using this, like, a little bit to try to push people to get their whole state to be covered under the latest building codes. In Nevada, interestingly, we are 95% covered, or 97%, I'm sorry, of the population is covered by the latest building codes. We have 3 counties that have no building codes adopted, and we have a couple of counties that have earlier codes that are adopted, but the majority of the state is at 2015 or higher. So most at 2018 level. So that's the building code issue. And then people were just a little bit shy. The other issue is that 2020 BRIC has not been funded yet. And that is because FEMA's FEMA Go system is not ready to be able to, they can fund one grant, but they can't do any amendments to do additional grants. So when the first grant of that year is funded, that starts the clock of your period of performance. So FEMA Region 9 decided that in order not to penalize any of the states or territories in Region 9, they chose not to start with funding by that one grant that can be funded, and to hold off until FEMA Go fixes, FEMA headquarters fixes the FEMA Go issue. So it's a bit of flying the plane while we're, or building the plane while we're flying it. And so I know that that is frustrating to everybody who has applied and is waiting for last year's grants to be funded, let alone this coming year's grants to be funded. So just so you know that that is, issues with that. For available grant funding, I want everybody to understand that we have 2 options. We have HMGP, which is the post-disaster set of grants. HMGP post-fire, and that's the mitigation funding that is generated because there was an FMAG, or Fire Management Assistant Grant declaration. And that triggers mitigation funding. The first obligation is to the counties to do a fire grant, some type of a fire grant. They don't have to though, and quite often fire people don't spend the available funding. Their projects are less than that available funding. So there's quite a bit of funding available right now. I have probably about maybe 500,000 to 600,000 in applications right now, but we have approximately 2.3 million available for that. So we want to generate projects, and one way to do that is with what we would call advance assistance in the post disaster type grants. and project scoping in BRIC, in the pre-disaster grant. So two names for the same exact thing. But essentially that's seed money to put together a project. And you can, so say you have a hazard that you're aware of, but you're not sure which solution is the best. So you can take that advanced assistance, apply for it, and then be ready. That will make you ready to apply for funding later. And you don't have to apply to FEMA for that. You could put everything together and figure it out and apply to somebody else for that same fund, to fund that project. But mitigation is allowing you to do that. And that's what generates shelf-ready projects, so that when funding comes along, you can pull it off the shelf and say, here, we have this application ready to go. The other funding that's available is HMGP that came as a result of COVID. And that was $13.5 million. And I know that we've heard FEMA throw around the $16 million amount. That includes management costs for both the local level that apply for a grant and the state. So that you have to take out, because all of that is only based on how much we spend of the grant money itself for projects. So we are doing that on a first come, first serve. So I'm telling everybody, get your grant applications in as soon as possible, because the faster we get them in, the sooner we can get them funded. It's a whole lot easier to fund our HMGP grants because they are in a different system. And so they don't have to do anything to do with FEMA Go right now. They're going to be added soon, but they're not in there now. Those are paper applications that we have posted on our website, a DEM website, and all the documentation can be downloaded for that to submit those applications. So that is that information there. We do have that same $10 million project has been set up to, they also applied for the HMGP from COVID. So we'll see, we're holding that one back because we want to see what else comes in from other people, but we need those applications in both cases, post-fire as well as the HMGP from COVID, to be submitted as soon as possible so we can get those through. And again, there's a lot of money on the table, and we don't, this is allocation in both cases. We don't want to keep giving back allocation because we can't get the applications for spending the funds that have been given to Nevada, because after a while they say, well, you don't need it, obviously, if you can't spend it. So if there are any questions, please reach out to us in mitigation, because we're more than happy to help you try to come up with ideas, or to also help with putting together applications, anything we can help with, answering questions. We're here for you. So reach out to me. You can reach out to Ryan Birchman as well. Between the two of us, we'll get the answer for you. And so that's about it with the grant update as well. And just the last thing would be deadlines for those. May 31st is the deadline for us to have all HMGP post-fire to FEMA. We want to get those in sooner than that. So any funding or any applications that would go towards that funding needs to be in soon. The HMGP from COVID is due to us by June 30th. And that'll actually, as I said, we're putting that in as we get them. So first come, first serve. If you wait until the very end, you might not have enough funding for the project you want to do. But again, one thing you also want to do is submit more projects than you have funding for, so that if anything drops out, you're your project may be funded. So if there are any questions, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask. And I'll turn it back over to you, Lorraine.
Okay, thanks, Janelle. Okay, if there's no other discussion on this item, we'll go ahead and close this agenda item, which is number 5, and we'll move on to number 6. Agenda item 6, again, is public comment, and this is for discussion only. No action may be taken upon a matter raised under this item of the agenda until the matter itself has been specifically included on an agenda as an item upon which action may be taken. Public comments may be limited to 3 minutes per person at the discretion of the chair. Comments will not be restricted based on viewpoint. To provide testimony during this period of public comment via telephone, please call in on the day of the meeting now by dialing 669-219-2599. When prompted to provide the meeting ID, please enter 686-738-8625 and press the pound sign. When prompted for a participant ID, please press pound again. When asked to provide public comment, please press *6 to unmute your phone and *6 again when your comments are complete. Please be advised that our YouTube stream is between 60 to 90 seconds behind the live meeting. If you would like to present public comment, please call in using that number we just gave so you can hear the meeting live. I will now open the meeting for public comment.
You have a hand up.
Hey, Lorraine, this is Rebecca.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, I actually have a question. Can I ask a question right now? Is that allowable?
Sure.
Sure. So, I'm updating the hazardous materials 3.3.11, and on that subject of climate impacts from climate change, what we find from impacts from climate change is due to forest fires and then hazardous materials being left over in neighborhoods. Would that go under hazardous materials or would that go under forest fires? Or both?
Janelle, do you have any idea? Or we might have to.
I'll input on that. I would go ahead. We have to address it in each section, each hazard section. So I think you could just put a couple sentences that say, this is the effect that we see climate change on hazardous materials. And you don't have to go into it so much because that'll be gone into further in the wildfire section, but you do have to address it in your section as well.
Okay, will do. See, Janelle, I am working on it. Huh.
You're wonderful.
Okay, were there any other comments? Okay, seeing none. I will go ahead and close agenda item 6 and move on to number 7. Agenda item 7 is adjournment for discussion and possible action. May we have a motion to adjourn, please?
I move to
Salome
adjourn.
Barton.
Oh,
Salome Barton, motion to adjourn, please.
Okay, and then may we have a second, please?
Craig DiPolo will second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Salome Barton, which was seconded by Craig DiPolo. Is there any other discussion on this motion? Okay, all in favor, please say yay.
Yay.
Yay. Okay, anyone opposed, please say nay. Okay, with that, the motion carries and the Nevada Hazard Mitigation Working Group meeting is adjourned at 2:14 p.m. Thank you, everyone.